everybody.
Welcome to a slightly unconventional episode. We just had a series of great interviews with our exhibitions interns, where they each talked about an artist that they looked at for either a series of gallery talks that they gave in the museum, or in particular to our self-portrait show, which is going up in June, which hopefully is right about when you're listening. That's going to be going up. But I think it was a great group of conversations. I really liked it. So
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to hear about it.
yeah. So a little bit different than normal. There'll be a lot of just in between people, but I think it's going to be a fun listen. So enjoy. First up, we have Aratrika.
Yes.
Welcome
Hi.
to the podcast. I hope it's not too intimidating.
No, it's actually fine. I feel good.
Oh, good. Nice.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. I'm Aratrika Ghosh. I'm a freshman, and I am a current curatorial intern at the Bates College Museum of Art.
Yeah. What got you interested in becoming an intern, just out of curiosity?
I've always loved doing art, and I think I might major in studio art.
Nice.
But I just wanted to see what kind of job opportunities were available in the art world. And I know a lot of art history majors do a lot of this museum work, but I think it was interesting to just explore and kind of try out something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great reason. So yeah, I understand that you've got some information because you did
Yes.
some research for a gallery talk on
Yes.
Jennifer Coates. So
Mhm.
I will let you take it away. Tell us about your work there.
Yeah, so Jennifer Coates she was born in 1973 in Surrey, England. She got her BFA from Pennsylvania Academy of Art and University of Pennsylvania, and then got her master's from Hunter College in London. And so a little background on her as an artist: she works basically in series, and her most initial series was based on more multiform cell-like structures, which were more atmospheric and celestial in nature, and I thought that was a really cool series. But then she moved on to a completely different series for her next sort of subject, and that series was based on documenting foods almost obsessively, as if they were portraits of just the food. And some of them, it was very cool to see how much detail she sort of put into those artworks. And her most recent series now, which is the one I looked at more closely, is based on landscapes and more nature related subjects. She basically focused on forested landscapes, and she started this series during COVID, and she got COVID, I think, March of 2020.
Oh, okay.
And she worked on just color pencil works and gouache paintings while she was sick, and also worked on Photoshop, because I think working on digital mediums was very prominent during the time. She sort of put them all together and sort of compiled them to make her final pieces, which I thought was very interesting. And even when I was presenting at the gallery talk, there were the smaller pieces of her drawings and initial ideas, and then her bigger canvas of her final piece, which I thought was interesting because you get to see how her progression of making the artwork went on. And I think another very interesting aspect about her work is that she sort of uses a lot of different colors and a lot of bright colors, which is very interesting because some patches will be black and white almost, and then there'll be a pop of color, and I think that creates a very interesting visual effect for the viewers. This series was inspired by Marsden Hartley's Dogtown series, and I think Marsden Hartley worked more with rocks, but she worked more with plants and more invasive species, and she wanted to document how plants can take over a space and a land mass without actually owning it. And I think just that idea. And I think I have a quote by her, which she said that she felt compelled to record what she knew would disappear. She wanted to create like an alertness to the threatened natural world through this series, and I thought that was really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are, the Coates works up in the exhibition that we had up previously when you were doing the gallery talk. It was really cool to see like her colored pencil drawings with Hartley's drawings. I thought that was a really cool comparison point between the two.
Yeah. Those works almost had like a coloring book feel.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, you have these, you know, blank outlines and in some corners, and then you have like a lot of vibrant colors, you know, and it's interesting to see those together.
Yeah, it was cool. You could kind of see the progression of her moving up towards doing like the full scale work kind of step by step. And I thought it was, you don't get to see a lot of that process work. You got, you know, usually you see just the end, obviously. So, that was definitely a cool thing to see. So, I didn't know that a lot about the fact that she had developed those skills during COVID. I kind of assumed I wasn't that familiar with her work up until then. So,
Thank you.
Yeah,
that was
thank
wonderful.
you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
We're excited.
Okay, good.
Yeah, exactly.
But please introduce yourself
Yeah.
before we
Of
get
course.
started. Tell us a little bit about how you became an intern, maybe, and your, you know, interest in art, perhaps.
Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Claire Kaminski. I am a junior, art history major, dance minor, English concentration.
Ooh, nice. Another English concentration.
Yeah. They don't have a minor, so I feel like everyone is an English concentration.
That's what I did.
Yeah. I love art, I guess. I'm very involved in the arts at Bates through like the performing arts and through the museum now. And I'm also assistant manager at the Range, so I try to bring in some arts events through that. I'm like organizing a gallery next week, gallery/art sale at the Range, which is really exciting. And I try to also like intersect dance and art at Bates, because I feel like right now they're two very separate disciplines, and I think it'd be fun if there was more, partnerships between the two.
No, that's very much a discussion all the time and never quite materializes. So that's a really, I appreciate your goals.
Thank you.
But yeah, why don't you talk about the artist that you were looking at?
Okay, so I thought today we could talk a little about William Morris. I know, Lucy, you might remember him from our Ned class.
Morris & Co.
Yes, so he was like really big in the 19th century. He was a poet, he was an artist, he was a designer, but he's like really integral to the revival of like the arts and crafts movement. And he hated like industrialist art and architecture, and he really wanted to call back to like hand craftsmanship and the kind of art that was super popular in maybe like the 14th or 15th century before industrialization had really started ramping up. And I think he's a really cool figure. He believed people should be surrounded by beautiful stuff. And his ideas like launched this whole arts and crafts movement that all these other artists got behind. And I think it's a really cool topic that we can link to today. The world is more industrial than ever, so I feel like he was right, and we should listen to him and start crafting more.
Right.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember learning about him in that class and like his beautiful wallpaper patterns, right? And they were just really incredible. Yeah, I've forgotten a lot about him and his work, but
he was like really associated with like the pre-Raphaelites too,
right.
Which like I love them for some reason. I feel like that was also the first art history class I took with the one and only Ned Harwood, so that really got me into the major. And yeah.
Nice. So yeah, so I mean, obviously Lucy's referenced the wallpapers. What are some of the other kind of works that he's known for and worked on?
He was really into like textile art and like the revival of textile art also, and architecture and things that we look at today and seem so harsh and like devoid of any love and care and like craftsmanship. I think he
Right.
was really interested in bringing back that
Handmade,
handmade, loved, beautiful quality of things, and I'm really into that. I love like crafts, and I love like knitting and crocheting and like doing all these, and like quilting and doing all these crafts. And I think that also in the art world today, they probably get a really bad rep as being like something super kitschy or something that like a mother would do. And so I think it's interesting to like think about what he saw in it and how we can apply that to now, and how like the things that he found super important and beautiful in art are seen as like, I don't know, in the hierarchy of things like super uninteresting and left to like the housewives of America.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting question about like what is considered worthy of display in a museum. And so it's cool to have an artist like that who works with some of those more, you know, it's not even like unconventional materials. It's just sort of, it's almost like the more everyday items that you might overlook or think of as part of the background, and how love and care can go into those things too. So yeah, that's a really cool idea.
And I feel like the arts and crafts movement in general was like a really big starting point for like modern design, and that also doesn't really get recognized as much.
Yeah.
Is there like a specific William Morris piece in the collection that you've been looking at?
So he was a subject for this one artist, Leonard Baskin. He's actually from New Jersey. We have a lot of his prints in the collection. I don't know if you know who Caspar David Friedrich is, but we have a print of him. We have a print of William Morris. We have a print of Courbet. So it's like that kind of era, realism, pre-impressionism. And yeah, they're all super, super cool. And I got assigned a lot of them. Like I got assigned Friedrich and Morris as subjects. I was also talking in one of my art history classes about craft, and we were looking at The Dinner Party by Judy Chicago, and how she likes to bring back these like forms of art that are kind of considered super kitschy. And I also like that crafty sort of arts are like based in this community inspired like place where like people from the community can help, or like people can contribute, and maybe the person who made it, it's not just one name, you know, it's like a whole load of people, which is cool.
Right, it's not a machine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not industrial.
No.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. This is a ton of fun.
Thanks, guys.
We're
Awesome.
very intrigued already.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Anders Landgren. I'm a sophomore intern at the Bates Museum of Art in the exhibition management program. So essentially what I've been doing throughout my internship has been doing research on the various topics and artists, so subjects, artists of the upcoming portraits exhibition, which I believe starts in June.
Yes, it should go up. I don't want to give a date because I'm sure I'll get it wrong, but stay tuned. June is right. So
Yeah, so I've just been doing some research for that. Today I'm going to be talking about an artist by the name of Charlie Hewitt, who is...
Oh, yeah.
He was the first artist I actually did research on, and I thought it was really cool because I had seen his work before but not realized it was him.
Yeah.
The hopeful sign.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I first was researching him, obviously the hopeful sign is his most current project. And for those of you that don't know, it's a series of light-up signs that say hopeful that he's been putting across Maine and now the greater New England area, a couple in New York City now. So it's a pretty expansive project. And the background behind it is sort of he wants to spread a message of hopefulness, and one of his first ones was actually right here in Lewiston, Maine.
Yeah. He's from Lewiston, right?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. But the more I dug into his work and looked at other things he's been doing, the more I found. And actually the piece that he's having in the Bates exhibition has nothing to do with hopeful or anything. It's completely separate. It's actually a self-portrait of him on the body of a mermaid. So
Interesting.
Right.
That's awesome. That's kind of on brand for Charlie. He has some funky, weird stuff. Yeah.
But I thought that was so cool, to be able to do so many different things with art and have so many mediums. Obviously, he's in painting, sculpture, etching, all sort of things. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I was actually able to reach out to him.
Oh, great.
Because I was talking with Anthony and Dan Mills, who sort of run the exhibition management internship, and they said, we think this is a self-portrait, but we're not exactly sure, so we were wondering if you could reach out to him. And they gave me his email and everything, and I reached out. He was very gracious. He said, yes, this is me. He said, I know it's a little bit different, probably not something you see every day. And I was like, no, that's perfect.
That's all I need.
Very unique,
yes.
Yeah. I have to ask more about this mermaid situation. So is it like his upper body and then like the mermaid legs, or like?
Yeah, so it's a wood print. So it's an etching that's been printed, or an engraving that's been printed onto a piece of paper, probably not that big, 6 by 5 inches or something.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's his face with arms, but there's not really an upper body. It's just kind of a mermaid tail on some waves. So it's not colored or anything. It's very, very, I mean, I shouldn't say plain. The background is plain, but his body is very detailed, and the tail has a lot of patterning on it. So it's super interesting in that respect, but that's kind of it. There's not really a background or a setting to the piece. So yeah, it's super neat.
Yeah, we have a lot of Charlie stuff in the collection. Like I feel like people know him from the public art. There's the hopeful signs. There's anyone who visited the museum. If you've seen the little public statue that's in the circle outside the museum, that's Hewitt's as well.
And he did the rattler. Those swinging shapes in like inside of the mills, right?
Yeah, it's over nearby by Fishbones for locals listening.
Yeah.
But he's done some really great engraving work and stuff like that. That is kind of my favorite stuff of his. So I'm glad that some of that's making it into the show.
Definitely. I mean, he's got so much different stuff, and I think that's so cool. But most of what Bates has, at least as far as I know, is from the Browery suite of his collection. So it's mostly engravings, lots of portraitures of him and other artists. But yeah, super interesting stuff. And he kind of is very on brand for what the Bates Museum likes to collect, because he's a Maine artist. He's fairly well known. He has a lot of work, so we were able to acquire a collection somehow. So it's been super interesting to just look at what he's done and see, how he's developed in his career.
Yeah, and Charlie also is exactly the kind of person who, maybe he'd like to appear on this program.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a very established online presence. He talks to like the news and things like that. So if you want to learn more about Charlie, like look up his website. It's covered in information. He's not a recluse by any stretch of the imagination. So very cool artist.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming and doing this. Yeah.
Hi. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Maddie Kemp. I'm a sophomore. I'm from Bethesda, Maryland. and I'm a double major in art history and politics.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, first of
Yeah.
all. Who were you looking at? What's your research?
For my research, I've actually been looking at a lot of photographers and a lot of documentary photographers specifically. So I picked Dorothy Lang, who's an American photographer from New Jersey. And she's really known for her work photographing the Great Depression. So if you've seen, if you Google photos of the Great Depression, her work it's like this one photo titled Migrant Mother that everyone has seen. It's in every textbook.
Yeah. I feel like even if you don't know the name, I feel like you've
you
definitely seen it.
You could literally see it, and you'd be like, oh, I know who this person is, even if you've never heard her name before. Yeah, so like I said, she's from New Jersey, and she studied at Columbia University, and then she moved to San Francisco. She had her own photography studio, portrait studio, and then was photographing the homeless and people waiting in soup kitchen lines during the Great Depression, and that's how she kind of got her start, and then got commissioned by the government actually to start taking photos of migrant workers throughout the United States, and that was where she did the one that everyone's seen and kind of really rose to fame. And the work that we have at base is actually a photo of her husband. I don't remember his name, but he's a painter, and so that's why it's in the artists and self-portrait exhibition. But
Gotcha.
yeah, and then she eventually went on to photograph actually the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, and a lot of her photos were kept hidden by the government for most of the war, and then eventually released. And then she went to take photos in Europe and Asia towards the end of her career. So she's an incredible photographer, really driven by social change and trying to actually make an impact. And reading about her was super, super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was she one of the photographers? Was it the FSA? Is that
the FSA, exactly, the Farm Security Administration. And so they were trying to raise awareness about the conditions of migrant workers in California and across the United States during the Great Depression. And so they sent her out on all of these trips to go and one of her photos, the really famous one, Migrant Mother, was on the cover of the I think it was the San Francisco Times or San Francisco News, and then 2 weeks later it ended up sparking so much conversation, and people were so oh my gosh, alarmed about the conditions of these people that the government then sent food to these workers in California, 2,000 of them. So it was it was super interesting.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, the FSA is one of those, if you're taking U.S. history, you're taking in the past, it's one of those alphabet soup kind of of New Deal administrations. But we have a lot of the photography that comes from Lang and from other photographers in that era of Great Depression scenes, very cheery subjects mostly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
And I mean, it's very emotional work. She's got a really good talent for just capturing the candid scenes and the raw emotion of things. And none of it is super joyful or fun to look at most, but she still has a very artistic eye for it and makes it beautiful, and even in these times that are really, really tough. So
Right. Yeah. And can you tell us more about this? It's a portrait of her husband that's going up in the show?
It's Maynard Dixon. So he was, she married, she was her second husband, and he was known for his work painting the American West. He does these massive landscapes of the cliffs in New Mexico and Arizona, and they're and painted a lot of cowboys and a lot of all that stuff. He loved the American West. And they got married. It was, like I said, her second husband, and they had, I'm not sure how many kids, but she's taken a lot of photos of him, and a lot of them with their children, and then just him painting. And so we have one that's going up in the show.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I'm really glad that we've been able to get some. I think this is the only photography that we've talked about in our conversations today. So I'm glad that there's been some photography presented, because that's a big part of what's in our collection. Honestly, one of its biggest strengths is the array of photography. So.
Yeah, I always like how photojournalism can turn into art, and that when someone is hired to do a project, to go investigate something and go communicate something to a large amount of people in photographs, and then those photographs become really moving in the art world.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Because we had photojournalist Donna Cesare. She came and gave a lecture at the museum, and when she was talking about most important inspirations for some of her work, the first person she mentioned was Dorothy Lang. So it's really cool to kind of see that continuity going forward and to see the power that images can have in actually affecting how people feel and act.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she was such a significant, like, people say that she's one of the most influential American photojournalists of all time.
yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Seeing that her legacy is awesome. And like I said, a lot of my research for this exhibition has been on photojournalists. And so I did like Robert Capa and then a couple of really early photographers. And one of the really interesting things about her is that she was not adamant, but pretty strong that her work was not art first. Like, she's not making art for art's sake. She's not taking pictures to take beautiful pictures that are, changing the face of the art world. She's taking these photos because of the social impact that they can have and the impact. And she has written an essay with her son later in her life where she criticizes like the contemporary art world. And she passed away in 1965. So you're sort of getting this rise of the modernist movement and all this, innovation in artistic creation and abstraction and stuff. But she was actually really not opposed to it, but didn't really like it and said, no, first and foremost, my art is about making an impact, and it's not even art really, it's just a storytelling. So
yeah,
that was super interesting.
It's great to have that perspective in the museum sometimes. Kind of shakes
exactly.
up a little bit. So
it changes everything up.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so
Great.
much for
Thank
coming
you.
in. Yeah.